Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and you can find me at www.cesarespino.com. Today, I have a special guest. Her name is Gina Garcia. Hey, Gina, how are you?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
I'm doing wonderful. I was telling you what a beautiful background you have there. So that's really nice that you get to enjoy the day today.
Yes, absolutely. It's a beautiful day in Florida.
That's awesome. So, I'm glad it's definitely good because definitely your journey has been definitely a very interesting journey. And maybe a lot of people do not know your background, or maybe they do. And if they don't, they're going to know that pretty soon. Before I dive into that, though, I want to kind of give our listeners and viewers a little bit of your background and have them kind of know, who you are. Okay. Mm-hmm. So Gina M Garcia is the 1%. 99% of all children abducted by a stranger are murdered within the first 24 hours, according to NCMEC. Gina, age 8, saved herself by jumping out of a moving car half naked after being brutally raped and assaulted at knife point in Florida Mall in October 12, 1981. She was taken by the same person that murdered Adam Walsh, son of John Walsh, from the Americans Most Wanted. With Gina's understanding of the journey of healing from sexual trauma, she was inspired to write a script with hopes of helping other survivors. At a chance meeting, she asked Patty Jenkins to direct her film. Patty said, "No, Gina, you have to tell your story." Gina said she wasn't a director, but Patty's response was, "You will be when you are done." Gina flexed her own manifesting muscle, and the director of Monster taught her how to be her own Wonder Woman. With Patty Jenkins as a mentor, Gina wrote, produced, and directed her life story in her directorial debut, Untold. This is my story, which she self-funded. Gina believes that when it comes to trauma, no story should go untold. Wow, that's really amazing, and I got a chance to see the preview or the trailers, I guess, of your movie, and definitely there's a lot to be told. So why don't you take me back to where are you originally from, what were you born in, just kind of walk me through that childhood prior to getting to this.
I was born in Tehran, Iran. My father worked for Air America, which was a division of the CIA. We left Iran in 1976, right at the beginning of the revolution that was about to occur. We ended up in Orlando, the greatest place on earth, the home of Disney World. And I pretty much was raised in Orlando with my siblings, and then took off and joined the military when I was 20 years old, and I joined the United States Navy.
All right. No, that's good. So let's take it back. And obviously I know you have a movie. Definitely they want to tap into that, because even for the people that don't get a chance to watch the movie right now, or when it comes out, at least they can kind of get a feel of the things you went through. Walk me through, how was that? Obviously you were 8. I'm assuming you were just like any normal kid, just enjoying family time, having a good time, really going through that. Were there any difficult or challenging times, any traumas that led up to that point, or everything was good for you as a kid?
I was a child of divorce. My parents divorced, right after we came to the States. I had a pretty normal childhood. My dad had me on the weekends. I went to school. I was students council president, that kind of thing. And then a random day as girls' night out with my mom and my sister, a serial killer decided to abduct me.
Wow. So, and you were with your mom and your sisters.
Yes. We went to the movies, and then from there, my mom had to pay a bill at the Sears and Roebucks, and me and my sister went to Walden Bookstore.
Got it. Do you believe that kind of going through that experience, how that took place, were you an easy target? There's this saying that sometimes what we think or what we're going through might attract different things, right? And so obviously being from a divorced parents, and did that have any bearing, any kind of energy or anything like that? Like, do you feel like any of that could have been prevented at that moment, or how was that you became a target?
I don't necessarily, believe in the idea of targets.
Okay.
I was an 8-year-old kid. This is the 80s. We talked to people. It was before stranger danger.
Yeah.
There was the Atlanta child murders. That 29 African-American children were murdered between 1979 and 1981 that we don't talk about. So I was taken by a serial killer that murdered 108 people.
Wow.
Was it the fact that I was in the bookstore? Was it the fact that my sister might have been talking to somebody else at that time? The only person to blame for the situation is Otis Toole, and that was my abductor. My parents, my sister being a child of divorce, had nothing to do with the fact that a serial killer decided to choose me out of them all. Could have been was more adept to abducting boys. More than likely. I was a little tomboy. I wore a baseball cap. I emulated a lot of things that my brother did. So did that make me a target? No, that just made me me.
Mm-hmm.
So I struggle with target because that means I'm a predetermined victim, and I'm not a victim.
Yeah, definitely. So tell me a little bit about that. Obviously, that's definitely something that definitely a kid doesn't want to go through. Definitely parents don't want to see their kids go through any of that stuff. You being adopted and going through that difficult, challenging time, what was going through your mind? How were you able to kind of step away from that and be able to as you said, you jumped out of a car half naked to be able to get away? What was going through your mind? Because again, I see this a lot, and I was watching some stuff recently where people say, well, this is not happening anymore, and it continues to happen. It's something that sometimes people, whether same parents or kids alike, have to be aware of the surroundings or be able to be in a different mindset. I would say, to be able to be alert to make sure that something like this does not happen to them. So obviously through your story, being able to utilize that, and I always believe this, unfortunately, yet is a great purpose, that sometimes from pain a huge purpose is born, right? And it's unfortunate, sometimes we're fortunate, however you want to see it, that we might go through certain things, yet that's going to help us impact people in a different way and really help them in their journey, right? So definitely you're a model through all things you're going through. Again, at that age, what were some of the things that maybe went through your head then, and what would you tell somebody that might be in the risk of going through something like that?
Well, during that time period, kind of like how I mentioned my dad being the weekend dad, my abductor took me and parked his car in front of the Lionel Playworld, which was a toy store back in the 70s and 80s. So my mind was paying attention to what the Lionel Playworld sign. It was being with my dad, happy place kind of thing, because I was brutally assaulted. I was raped. I was an 8-year-old with a knife to my throat. So anything to escape that moment was my presence, consciousness at that time. I sung the Lionel Playworld theme song over and over again. And could I advise someone to go to that place? I would rather advise people to not hopefully ever be in that situation, because the reality is I am the 1%. 99% of kids are murdered. So I rather advise children how to get out of that situation versus how to have a mental state to be in that situation.
Yeah, and definitely, and that's
Right,
really what I also mean. Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, those that
So,
have, you know, yeah.
so an interesting metaphor is I was looking at kangaroos. And what do kangaroos do? They jump, they hop.
Mm.
And all through my head, I was hearing jump, 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 jump,
Yeah.
jump. And because all I know is I was a little kid that watched the Lionel Play World commercials. I wanted my dad to take me to Lionel Play Worlds, and what kangaroos do is jump. And the interesting part is my company that I also own currently, besides my movie, is called Trikaroo, and our mascot is a kangaroo. I rewrote my history to make that idea of looking at kangaroos not the most horrific part of my life, but a part of my journey that I do other great things with.
Right. So definitely is definitely a good metaphor and a good symbol to say, you know, sometimes you just gotta be able to keep jumping, even in some challenging, difficult times, right? That have done that. So you were able to essentially get away rather quickly from that, or was it?
Well, I was taken for about an hour and a half.
Mhm.
When after I was assaulted, he tried to leave the parking lot, and by a miracle, somebody, when he was trying to pull out, ran a stop sign and he had to come to a halt. At that time, I grabbed the door handle and jumped out of the car, and I ran back into the mall and I found my sister.
Got it. Yeah. And after that point, obviously, you talked about the healing of that sexual trauma and the rape and going through all of that. How was that for you to be able to definitely work through those challenging times in your as a kid and in your teens?
As a kid in my teens, I actually really didn't process it. My parents were
Okay.
advised just to pretend it never happened. So a lot of that memory, I didn't know if I was completely crazy or if it actually did happen. And that's part of the story to Untold, was when you're dealing with PTSD, and my films more in the line of how do you deal with trauma with PTSD than the rape itself. We don't shed a lot of light about the assault. It's the process of actually getting through that, and how it shows up as how you're living as an adult. And I would say the processing and learning was, I saw myself not in the healthiest relationships. I With my friends, with my family, things were just missing. I was angry. I didn't process things the way I should. And
Mhm.
with that, I there was a hate crime that I was a victim of, that kind of brought back all those memories of that moment when I was 8 years old. And I was like, am I imagining it? Did this really happen? And I had to process it. So part of the processing for me, I always knew growing up I was taken. What I didn't process was what happened in that car.
Yeah, yeah. At which point, obviously, you had to suppress the memories, or you kind of forgotten about that to an extent. At which point did it hit you, and you're like, you kind of came to reality and you came back to that, and maybe all of that that took place at an early age came to you as whatever age you were, and you said, now I got to really, you know, deal with this and go through this healing process.
It hit me when I was a victim of a hate crime. All
Okay.
of it just kind of came like back at me as uh, like a tidal wave. I think that's the best way to put it. It was like a tidal wave, because you feel like you're drowning.
Got
I
it.
don't know if you've ever been in the surf at all, and you have just this massive wave that comes over you, and you feel like you're in a washing machine, and all you're trying to do is get to the surface so you can take a breath of air.
Right.
That's what it felt like when my first PTSD triggers happened.
Gotcha. What kind of a hate crime was that?
Um, I I'm a lesbian, and
Okay.
so the LGBTQ, I had employees break into my business.
Mhm.
They trashed my car, they trashed my house, they wrote slurs all over my walls of my business, they stole from me. Um, So it was in the movie, it's played out as one incident. It was a series of 13 different
Yeah.
incidents. It was repetitive. It felt more like bullying. Um, so it was literally going, wow, if I was a kid going through this, or if I had a child and I was going through this, how I have to figure out what is this root cause, because
Right.
it's it's extreme trauma to another extreme trauma, and I just had to process it. Because for myself, um when you have something like this happen to you, the perpetrator, the bad guy, lives with you almost your entire life until you're ready to let them go. They'll dictate things. They show up. You don't even know they're there, but they're there. They show up. Like the television show Dexter, he talks about this dark passenger. And for
Mhm.
children that are dealing with these kind of traumas, you carry it with you until you are ready to. My brother in the film says, "Get out of the car already." So I was driving around as a passenger to this trauma, and it was only up to me to open the door and get out.
Right. How old were you when you had this first hate crime?
I was 32, 33.
Wow. Okay. So I mean, again, kind of looking back and kind of going through your journey, right? I mean, obviously, at an early age, parents get divorced, you get adopted, raped. You're dealing with all these different things, uh, anger, all these different things. Then you have this hate crime. How do you have, the mindset has to be very powerful for you to be able to continually overcome all of those different obstacles and challenges, right? um, what were some of the things that you had to do through your healing process to help you through really 32 years of a lot of challenging times?
Well, I was very blessed to have my dad who believed I could do anything, and I've kind of I call it the manifesting muscle. It's my dad instilled at the earliest age that I can do anything. And some people say my dad's a liar. In my mind, my dad's not a liar. I
Right.
believe him, and I have done things that most people would never do, or have done. My parents went with the idea of like, let's just make sure her life turns out okay, or great. Or I was student council president in sixth grade. I lettered in sports. I was active. I was involved in things. I went to college. I played college softball. I went into the military. I graduated top of my class. I wasn't running around as the victim.
Mhm.
I was more overachieving, so I didn't get seen as a victim.
Mhm.
You see, like Oprah and Ellen, and they were all victims of childhood sexual abuse, and
Right.
we tend to go to the opposite extreme of a victim mentality because we don't want to be seen as dirty. We don't want to be seen as like garbage. We don't want to be seen as how the people that do the assault see them, as weak.
Right. And you know what? That's definitely a great lesson. Definitely something to for the people that are listening to us and watching us. That's definitely a great lesson to take on. I mean, at the end of the day, is whatever might have happened. There's this saying is I forget if it's Les Brown or somebody talks about it and says is not what happened to you, is what you do about what took place, right? And exactly that. Instead of being a victim, where obviously, yeah, you might have been a victim, nevertheless in your mind is like, I'm not a victim. It was not my fault. I'm going to do whatever I can to continue to live my life as if nothing took place, and even make it better and impact other people's lives. And that's exactly what you've done, right? And so tell me about your film. Like, what triggered the idea of creating the film? Um, how long did it take to do the film? And then you obviously funded the film 100%. So tell me more about that.
So the process of making the film and also making the decision to actually do so, I got to the other side. I was just like, I had this amazing group of women veterans that basically told me, stop telling the world you're okay when you're not. I told my story in my first PTSD support group of what happened to me, And they're like, why are you smiling? Like, why are you pretending to us that you're okay? You know, I call BS is basically it. And they were like, it's okay not to be okay. You don't have to like show the world you're dealing with it and stuff like that. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to open up. And these women that were, I call them, we were like the Wizard of Oz. There was the Cowardly Lion, there was the Tin Man, there was all these different aspects of these people that just, they filled in all the gaps that I was missing, or that I didn't even know I was missing. You know, I felt like Dorothy. They showed me Oz, and Oz was a way to live my life and to find happiness and joy. So having that experience, I wanted to show people that you don't have to implode your family while you're dealing with trauma. And I did that. I wasn't the kindest person. I wanted answers, and I wanted them now. And it didn't matter how it affected my family. And there's different ways to go about doing it. And I wanted to showcase that. I wanted to show what really dealing with PTSD looks like. We have these images of like SVU and how it shows up on television, and it's the perspective of the detective, it's the perspective of the parents, it's the perspective of the doctors. It's rarely the real perspective of how the person that actually goes through it looks like. And so I wanted to showcase that, and I feel I did that. It was a painful journey as far as emotional and financial, and a lot of risk I had to take. I lived in my warehouse so I could save money, to like every dollar I had was going to, oh, I'll buy a new mic. I'll be able to pay, you know, additional cast members. I took every dollar I had to making this film, and making movies is expensive.
Yeah, yeah. I bet there. I bet it is. Did you do it also as a form of bringing closure to the situation in your mind, or what was the other reason?
Everybody goes, I bet you it was cathartic. That's everybody says that's the where everybody goes to. Part of it was cathartic. Part of it was a hell yeah, I did this. I went through it. I'm not the person that dove into drugs. I'm not the person that's an alcoholic. I'm not the person that committed suicide. I'm not the person that was a teen pregnancy. And those are the statistics of what happens to people that deal with early onset trauma. And it was more of a celebration of my life. And we had the VOD premiere yesterday, and it was like, huh, I did that.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's, if what happened to me was in any other time period, the entire world would have known about it.
Mm.
And to be denied my truth for so long, I just got the closure on who actually took me in September of last year.
Wow.
And it was confirmed that it was a serial killer. He killed 108 people. He admitted to killing 108 people. He murdered Adam Walsh. And then there's me. And like, my story didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And I'm in one aspect, I'm glad there wasn't social media and all that, because I got to live somewhat normal.
Right.
And I wasn't just broadcasted all the time, because you know that causes arrested development as well.
Right. So you mentioned that just last year they confirmed that he was the one. How did that come about, and you know, what happened to this person, or actually I don't even know, to be honest with you. But what, you know, how did it come about and say, hey, we're linking this to you or him to you, and finally got. I mean, why did it take so long to get that figure out?
Well, I had to make a movie for people to take notice of me. And
Okay.
nobody that goes through that kind of trauma should have to make a movie for the police department to finally open up a case. So basically that's what occurred. I had met John Walsh in 2014 at an event. I had introduced myself and stuff. And he has a heavy plate, and I'm sure tons of people go, hey, here's my story, here's my story. But the New York Post had done an investigative reporting, and they contacted OPD. They asked about the questions like, how do you know, and this, that, and the other. And both John Walsh and OPD confirmed that during that time period, Otis Toole was there, that the links are too closely related. Adam Walsh was beheaded. I had a knife to my throat while I was being sexually assaulted. I'm at 8 years old. I was eight years old. I'm like 45 pounds, like soaking wet. You don't have to do that. So the MOs matched immensely, even from the cars that he had a habit of stealing, because I was in a car that was hot wired, and I was in a stolen car.
Wow. Yeah. That's definitely, I definitely am glad that that came to fruition for you, and it's coming 100% in for you. How long did it take you to do the film?
Well, I shot a majority of the film in 2012 and 2013. There's two versions of the film. There's Untold and there's Untold, This Is My Story. The first version, we took it to festivals. I didn't feel completely comfortable with the film on how it looked. I was portrayed more as a victim in it. So when COVID hit, and I got COVID for Christmas, thanks to an employee, and I was like, if I never get my film out, because I shelved it, I wasn't comfortable with it, so I shelved the film. And when COVID happened, I was like, if I die of COVID, I'm gonna be really mad, up in heaven, going, I had this film and I shot it, and no one ever saw it, and it would remain untold forever. So I had met up with my brother, and I said, my film, I feel like I'm a victim in it. He goes, well, when it was originally edited, you were still healing, you still were a victim. So you're in a different place. You've gotten to the side of being healed for yourself. So why don't you re-edit it? And so I went, and I just went in, I recut the film. I added a different ending, more of the hero's journey. And I am so proud of what has gone out to the world. Yesterday, on April 29th, it went out on all of the streaming platforms, and it represents me and my journey, not the journey that everyone thought it should look like. There was a romantic side in the film, and I'm like, there wasn't romance during that time. I was just spiraling, so all the extra Hollywood fluff got taken out of the film. And now when we went to, what do we call it? I was like, it's still untold, but this is my story. It's not anybody else's. So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, well, definitely congratulations. So definitely people need to go out and pick up the movie and stream it in their living room for sure. Talking about the healing, the journey, tell me more about that. We haven't really tapped into that. What has been that journey? What has been that healing journey? What have you done to help you, go through all this, and to an extent, not put it behind, because you can never forget it, except grow from it, right? What has been that healing process for you?
I got out of the car.
What does that mean exactly, though? And I know what you metaphorically, I know what you mean, but exactly what were the things you had to do to really overcome that? You came out of the car, you're mentally,
my mental state. I got out of the car. So for myself, I still see a therapist to this day.
okay.
I believe in therapy. I believe in you can still go through therapy. I believe in the idea of a tune-up. I still go to a therapist at least once a month, because I want to make sure I'm still doing okay. What happens a lot of times is people go, it's like with meds, any kind of meds, especially mental health meds. People go, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling good. And they go, I don't need the meds. And then they spiral and crazy. And it's this like cycling process. So for myself, it's, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling good. Hey, let me check in. Am I still feeling good? Okay, I am. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling good. Let me check in. And so it's part of my daily journey to, one, check in with myself. One, I have my licensed therapist from the VA that checks in and makes sure I'm still on a path. because I never want to go to that edge ever again.
Mhm.
And so that I do stuff like I'm just in the process of a move, so I believe in doing something for yourself first thing in the morning, not for
Mm.
anybody else. Make yourself the priority, and you do that, whether it's yoga, whether it's getting on the treadmill. For me, I like getting on the treadmill. I haven't lately because the move
Yeah.
has, so I know I have to do some things to self-care. And people use the term self-care a lot. I believe it's more of self-focused, and I have to get back in that, because the past couple of weeks getting all the way up to this premiere, I haven't been taking care of myself. I'll be the
Right.
first person to admit it. There's these podcasts and interviews and things like that. I have to pay attention and start taking care of myself a little bit better. With now that the film's out, my move is almost done, I can get back to my regular routine and sticking to a regular routine, knowing that what you're putting in your mouth, because my addictions, if anything, Willy Wonka and Ben and Jerry are my dealers. I'm a sugar addict.
Yeah.
So it's monitoring that and keeping things in moderation versus just like, that kind of thing. So
Right.
I'm paying attention to that. It's also, as far as having a tribe, and people talk about your tribe and your circle and things like that. I've, in this journey, and especially over the last few months, I've realized I don't have a circle. I have dots. I have very specific people that are in my life that kind of, fill my cup, make me feel better, energize me versus taking my energy away. And I think that's important.
Yeah, I definitely love that, and definitely again, going back to some of the things you just talked about, I just want to highlight them. Definitely having specific people that are helping you, as opposed to putting you down or not giving you the idea to move forward, right? And then obviously having Tony Robbins refers to them as rituals. So having some habits, daily habits in the morning for yourself, I think that's huge in terms of any kind of journey, whether you're healing or just trying to get better at that. And I like the metaphor of that, and I'm gonna go back and actually outline that. And as you got out of the car, mentally you got out of the car, and you're going back for your oil tune-up, which is pretty interesting, and definitely makes a lot of sense. And so I like how you put it. So definitely you got to do the same thing. Get out of the car and go check your tune-up every so often, because you got to make sure that you continue to do that. Gina, tell me where people can, I'm sure it's all over the place, just where can people watch the movie and find more about that?
Okay, so you can find the movie on Vudu, as well as Amazon, Xbox, Google Play, AT&T, Fios, DirecTV. You can find the movie there. It will be available in May on DVD in Barnes and Nobles, Walmart, Amazon.com, and Best Buy. You can also go to my website, my personal website, which is GinaMGarcia.com, or the film's website, which is Untold-movie.com.
Awesome. No, that's definitely great. And now that you've definitely had this huge milestone. Obviously, as you said, it's a self-accomplishment, something great you did, not only because you wanted to kind of talk about your story and impact other people. It's definitely at the end of the day, like you said, you're gonna end up leaving this place satisfying that you left something behind for other people to really take on and watch and help them through their journey. What's next for you?
What's next? I hope to do a 40-city tour, screening my film
Nice.
for the 40-year anniversary.
Ah,
And my goal is to screen the film, leave money in communities that need help with services for people dealing with trauma. I have 2 books in the works. One is Untold, I Am the 1%, which is the book version of my film. And then the 10 to 13-year path of actually making the film, called Spilt Milk. And it's basically everything I went through as a survivor of a child abduction and making a movie, because the process was fun, it was exciting, it was also brutal and emotionally and things like that. I yo-yoed, my weight all through making the film, that kind of things. And it's basically ups and downs of filmmaking. I flip houses in Florida on the water. I focus on waterfront homes,
Okay.
and I have that going on. I still have my business Trikaroo, so I'm constantly juggling. But my focus for the more than likely for the remainder of the year is just getting my movie out and helping as many people as I possibly can. And anybody can get to the other side of trauma. You just have to find the right people to surround yourself with.
Yeah, no, I definitely love that. One of the things, and obviously you've given us a lot of stuff. You've definitely endured, and you've definitely overcame so many different things, so many different challenges, and definitely you're doing good for yourself, and you're an example of that to the people that are listening to us. Obviously the fact that you've gone through so many challenges, for the people that are listening to us and are watching us, that might be going through whatever challenge they might be going through, what is one or a few things they can start doing to start overcoming those challenges?
Use your voice.
Mm,
Use your voice. No story should go untold. There are people out there. Go seek resources. We live in a time that we have the internet. There are resources in various communities that can help you. Tell people your story, because as soon as you start talking about your story, you own it. The abductors, the people that assault you, the bad people of the world, it's a power thing for them. It's them taking your power. When you could own your story, you take your power back.
yeah,
So start taking your power back.
yeah. No, definitely, I love that. And oftentimes we tend to stay quiet because we're afraid of people are not gonna believe us. We're afraid of, they're thinking we're lying. We're afraid of what could happen. And so definitely, I do believe, and I do agree with you. And definitely use your voice. And we have the ability to do it in many different forms, especially living in the U.S. for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's an entire Me Too movement.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of us out there. Statistically, there's 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men have gone through some form of sexual assault in their lifetime. That number
Wow.
is disgusting.
It is.
It's just disgusting. There's what, 7 billion people on the planet.
Mhm.
That means there's over 1 billion people that are in this club that none of us want to be in.
Wow. Yeah.
So
That is.
if we start talking about it, that's the only way we're going to cause change, because it's you can't walk out onto the street and not talk to a person that hasn't been affected by trauma. They might not have been affected directly, but they know somebody that has.
Right.
So if we no longer make things untold and start talking, we could cause great change in the world.
Yeah, definitely create a movement there. That's for sure. So yeah, definitely. And Gina, I don't really have anything else. I'm so glad that I had you here on the show. Before I let you go, is there anything else that you want to mention?
I would just like to say thank you for the opportunity of being on your show. And I hope there's other survivors, thrivers, change from being a survivor and know that you're a thriver, is how I would like to leave it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I really enjoy that. And again, thank you for your story. And I know that your story is definitely going to impact many different people. For the ones that are listening to us, go ahead and check out her movie, Untold. This is my story. And do me a favor, make sure that you share this message, because somebody needs to hear this, and we can definitely impact somebody's lives. I'll see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046. Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share.
And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.